So much, and it's great to be with my family in District 7010 tonight. So hello, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those of you who know me know that I'm very passionate about this subject. But I'll just begin my comments and look forward to some conversation perhaps a little later. So, a top priority for Rotary is growing and diversifying our membership to make sure that we reflect the communities we serve and that we're inclusive of all cultures, experiences, and identities. And we are creating an organization that is more open and inclusive, fair to all, and builds goodwill and benefits our communities. And as you probably know, in January of 2019, the RI Board of Directors passed a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. And I'm sure you're all familiar with it. I'm not going to read it. You can certainly look up the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement on the Rotary website. But I thought we should take one look at one aspect of diversity in Rotary that we can make immediate advances on, and that is women in Rotary and women in leadership positions. So as of July 1 of this year, you probably know there's 6 women on the board. And as of July 1, 2021, there will be 8 women on the board. And because our president-elect as of July will be Jennifer Jones, yay, there will be 9 women on the board. And this is actually gender parity for the first time in our organization. So really, really exciting. This is healthy and this is necessary because we know that a diverse board brings innovation, alternate opinions, and thought. And most of all, a diverse board brings fairness of opportunities and leadership. And that's something that we're just starting to see more and more women in leadership positions. You probably also are aware that Rotary International has set a strategic goal to have membership of women at 30% by 2023. And I remember when I heard this statement made in Hamburg at the convention, I thought to myself, why are we putting a number on it when obviously we should be at 50%? But, in hindsight, if we don't have goals and we don't have measurable outcomes, we might still be having this conversation in the year 2030. So I think it's important for such a probably an obvious diversity that we should put a number on it. So, but the interesting thing is if we break that number down and we look at current membership of women in Rotary right now on a global basis, we're sitting at 24%. So think about our goal of 30% in just a few years, right? But if we look at North America, we currently sit at 33%. So that shows us that our part of the world is doing well. We could do better, but that the rest of our global organization is sitting at less than 20%, and that's really bringing down that number. But here's the really encouraging thing about DEI and demographics and the future of our organization, Rotaract. Our future members and leaders in Rotaract. So if we look at women in Rotaract right now, it globally sits at 45%. And in North America, it's 54%. So, we look at what that tells us, and we know that we need to remain relevant and attractive to new diverse members, and we must be inclusive to potential new members. In 2025, millennials will dominate the global workforce by an estimation of 75%. And, I have daughters that are around 30 years old, and I know many of us do. We know that this generation demands a diverse workplace, and they base their job offers and acceptances against the measurement of a company's diversity. So, this generation that has raised their voices and allowed our generation and those before us to finally feel comfortable having those conversations. I was speaking at a large club in Michigan recently, and we touched on DEI. It wasn't the main reason why I was speaking to them, but we touched on it. And I was asked to stick around for a few minutes after the meeting to continue the conversation. And after a few minutes, a Rotarian who self-identified as an African-American spoke up. And he shared with us a very personal and impactful message. And that was that after 15 years of being a Rotarian in his club, with his fellow members, his Rotary family, he's never felt 100% accepted. And he never felt like he could express his concerns or his feelings. And he saw many other potential Black members join, only to leave in the first couple of years. And so the conversation we're having today in our clubs and in our districts, it actually gave him the courage to speak up. I have to say, I was really touched, and I really realized how important this conversation was, not just to the next generation, but to our current members, to cultivate a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture where people from underrepresented groups have greater opportunities to participate as members and leaders and feel comfortable and feel like they're being heard. So, what's important is that we live by our diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, and we celebrate the contribution of all people regardless, and that our clubs represent the communities we live and we work in. Now, many of you will be familiar with, my journey and my career with Tim Hortons. We were 25 years as Tim Horton restaurant owners in Scarborough. And during that time, we employed over 200 people, 200 workers, 200 team members with disabilities of all kinds in all positions, including senior management. And at any given time, our disabled employees made up 20% of our workforce. And, we didn't do this because it was the right thing to do. We certainly didn't do this from a charity point of view. We did it because 20% of the world's population is disabled. And so you want to represent your community. And by employing people with vastly different problem-solving skills, we created a more innovative workplace. And the interesting thing is, and you may have heard me do this before, but if we compare our Rotary Club to a franchise situation, your employees or your members come from the community in which you operate. Their families become your customers, your supporters, your volunteers, and you build awareness and loyalty when you touch the diversity and the diverse population of your town. When you walk through the door and you identify with the members in the room, you feel an instant connection and a feeling of belonging and self-worth. And when I think back to that conversation with that Rotary member in Michigan, he wasn't really able to say that he didn't feel that belonging or self-worth because he didn't necessarily identify with the people in the room. Even though he'd been there for 15 plus years, he didn't feel like he was comfortable to speak. So I think, if you get back to, walking through the door and identifying and just thinking about building capacity so that people walk through the door and they're not the one of, and they don't feel like they're the token, diverse person in the room. I can go back to our business example again. And when I can tell you that we had so many customers tell us that we were not the closest restaurant to their path to go to work or their commute to go home, but they loved coming to our stores, our restaurants, because they felt comfortable, because it represented the community. And this is really what our Rotary clubs need to look like. So, the other thing is we put out a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement at Rotary International from the board. And it does take tone from the top. It takes leadership to make sure that people are comfortable having these conversations and they know that this is the direction of our organization. But having a statement isn't good enough. We have to put action behind our words. So in July, the board conducted a special meeting with DEI as the only topic on the agenda. And a decision was made to form a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force to bring recommendations to the board by June of 2021. And President Holger Knack asked me to chair this committee, and we're really excited about the work ahead of us. But I have to say it's a heavy lift, because we're never going to be able to just check a box and say that, job well done, we've accomplished it. Because as you know, a change in culture takes many, many years. But I'm excited that we're starting the conversation, or we're continuing the conversation in many instances. And we're becoming upstanders for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But, as I said, it takes tone from the top. We are a bottom-up driven organization. And so there's really a lot of work we need to do at the club and district level. And we need to be very, very intentional. So there's a number of different ways that we can do this. These are very simple suggestions, but I think really relevant, and maybe a way of looking at our club and our meetings during this time of COVID as well. So number one, take a look at your meeting location. Is it convenient and accessible to everyone? And I'm not just talking about physical plant, whether there's a ramp needed or whether there's an elevator. Is it convenient and accessible to everyone? Is it a comfortable environment that has no religious or political ties? Are we seeing some of the benefits maybe of meeting in this virtual world? You know, I mean, there's that old joke, and please don't take this personally for anybody who meets in a senior's home or an old age home, but are we really going to attract the next generation if we're meeting in an environment that is either a church group or an old age home or a political or, you know, a political organization tie. So anyways, just take a look at your physical meeting. What time of the day do you meet? Is lunch a good time if you're working professional to take an hour and a half off? One of the greatest things I'm seeing out of COVID is one of the things we hear all the time. One of my, you know, buzz expressions is that nobody should be excluded from Rotary because of the cost of a meal. And I think we're really seeing now the benefits right now of being inclusive to all, and that whole socioeconomic piece of DEI. You know, have we made ourselves look so exclusive that people just say, I can't afford it? You hear it all the time. You know, time and cost are the two reasons why people say they can't join Rotary right now. Also, look at your culture and your environment. You know, we've all experienced this, but it doesn't make it acceptable. Micro inequities, microaggressive behavior, off humor jokes or comments. You know, it's unacceptable behavior, and it's unacceptable to allow this to continue in our Rotary clubs, because we're really, as leaders, setting the stage that even if we deal with it after the meeting or off to the side, we're really in effect condoning the behavior. We're kind of saying it's okay without really addressing it. And there are respectful ways of addressing that when it happens. So, you know what, be intentional. And the other thing I just want to talk about is, you know, we have 4 priorities in our strategic plan, and diversity plays a part in each of those 4 priorities. So the first priority is increase our impact. So what can we do at the club and district level around DEI and increasing our impact? You know, we can easily develop a strategy and highlight the importance of the impactful service projects that we do in our community. We can certainly conduct a community assessment to determine which issues are at the top of our community. And I think we're doing a really good job of that right now. We're really connecting with our community, and we're really seeing the economic effects of COVID and what we're going through right now. And I do believe we're reaching out more and more to the community who has supported us in the past through our fundraisers and through our hands-on activities. Focus efforts so more time is spent on activities that make a real impact. And, you know, all of these suggestions require relationship building and an understanding of cultures and expectations and long-term outcomes. So a true inclusive project not only brings our diverse vocational perspectives, but also our experiences and our values and our teachings. So the second priority is expanding our reach. And again, what can we do at the club and district level? You know what, we can easily set a goal to collaborate with new groups in the community. With diverse organizations or projects, we could participate in events such as Pride celebrations or International Women's Day or Disability Day. We can invite a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert to come and speak to our club. And we can certainly go onto the Rotary.org Learning Center and use some of the membership tools to show us how to create a more diverse, open, and attractive Rotary Club. But I also think it's really important to tell those compelling stories, right? That lived experience, that hearing from our fellow members what their life and their journey has been like, because I think it's really important that we can never assume or we can never walk in another person's shoes, but we can certainly listen to their stories, to their authentic, true stories that can really help shape the way we think. Enhance participant engagement. You know, I think sometimes we need to shift our focus and away from gaining new members to delivering value and engaging our current members. And we need to build connections with everybody who encounters Rotary, you know, in our community, new members, community partners, and invite them to share their ideas and their thoughts. And finally, increase our ability to adapt. I know Tracy's probably going to touch on a lot of this. You know, our ability to adapt has been something that we've been working on as far as the RI board for a while. We are prepared for this new innovative way of doing business and creating new clubs in Rotary, because we're not just reacting to this new way of doing business during COVID. We have been looking at flattening our organization, making jobs in our districts, even as a director, more doable so that we can engage younger members who are still working, who are still raising families. So, we can hold in our club and districts, we can hold innovation forums and brainstorming sessions to gather new ideas. We can set aside a small fund in our budget in our district and our clubs to stay ahead of change. And that might be to help support new satellite clubs, new innovative club models. But again, just like we did at the Rotary International Board, I think it is time. And again, I think this is front of mind for many people who are looking at doing Rotary in a different way. It's time to review our club roles, our processes, and our tasks to be more efficient and to be more inclusive. And most important, to make sure that we have a continuity plan in our leadership so that this becomes a invested joint effort and success. So, differences should never threaten who we are. Rather, it should enhance our worldview and solidify our own beliefs, but also, if we're open to it, increase our ability to adapt and to alternate thoughts or views. Diversity and inclusion will allow us to remain relevant and offer us many more opportunities, but we have to stay open. And our organization was founded on diversity of its time because Paul Harris understood that a diverse vocational background helped establish ethical business, learned behavior, and perspectives that help all of us grow as individuals and in business. So we must be intentional on our diversity. And just to close, this year has taught us a lot of things. In a positive way, it's taught us how to be kind, it's taught us how to listen, and it's taught us how to reflect on what's important in our lives and the lives of others. And I think this holiday season, as we reflect on a new way of celebrating with or without our family, I think that is just so true. It's a unique time in history, and I think it is the time to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of our life.